Welcome to the Explainer. So today we're going to walk through a really fascinating and highly precise document. We'll be going over the strict, step-by-step operation manual for the protocol Quantum Render. Now, my goal here is to be completely neutral and respectful. We're just going to look at the exact text as it is written. No judging, no exaggerating, and no adding or removing anything. It's a methodology that gives the user exact instructions on how to operate reality as a fractal function of consciousness, shifting right out of a passive state.
The manual is broken down into 4 specific structural phases. We've got 1. Omnisource tuning, 2. Quantum plane diagnosis, 3. Adaptive flow meta-evolution, and 4. Omega closing seals. Let's dive right in.
Okay, but before we get into the actual procedures, we need to talk about what the text calls Layer C, or the configuration layer. You can think of this as the foundational starting point for the operator. It's the internal configuration space where the 8 attributes of omni-reality are actually integrated. The main idea here is that reality needs to be operated from this exact layer, as a lived experience, rather than just being something you passively observe from the outside.
All right, moving to Section 1, Omnisource Tuning, Protocol Omega RE.
For this specific tuning phase, the text lays out a very strict 5-step operational sequence. We have the Layer C recording, the activation mantra, the visualization, the Python code execution, and finally, the Omega seal.
Step 1 is the Layer C recording. This is all about accessing the 0 point. The manual instructs the operator to close their eyes and do 90 seconds of what it calls non-rendering. Basically, you're suspending all judgment, dropping labels of your environment, essentially uninstalling your social software. Once you hit that state, you record this exact phrase into your configuration. I am not the passive observer. I am the design axis of the simulation. My reality is living code, and I am its editor.
Right after that recording, the operator moves to the activation mantra. The text calls this chronosemantics, which is a linguistic tool meant to synchronize your biological processor directly with the quantum matrix. The exact phrase you're supposed to speak is omnipotence to create, omnipresence to be, omniscience in my record, omnitemporality in my yesterday. Plastic is my world, dimensional my network, subtle is the void, adaptable my faith, absolute oikononos omega.
Okay, step 3 is visualization, specifically called the 0 point forge. The instructions are to visualize the solid world completely dissolving into these fluid fields of light. Inside your chest, you picture an 8-pointed crystal structure, an octagon, where each point is a different attribute and frequency. You're instructed to mentally take an old piece of code, maybe a rule of scarcity or illness, watch it collapse and burn right in the center of that octagon, and then see it replaced by a new geometry of golden light anchoring to every single particle of your body.
Next up is the Python script execution named omnirealita sync.py. The text provides phonetic transliterations for reading this code out loud, starting with import omnisource as OS. Objectively, this script acts as the logic engine. It's explicitly designed to integrate the 8 attributes into your operating system, setting your render mode to manual co-creation and effectively purging classical thinking errors, things like linear time and the separation between subject and object.
And to close out the tuning phase, we have the Omega seal. This is done to prevent the system from reverting back to the old paradigm. You do specific physical gestures here, touch your forehead, then your heart, and then open your hands outwards like you're mapping infinity. While doing this, you say the affirmation. The old map has been closed, the 8 codes beat in my skin, the simulation responds to my pulse, commit, Omega. That brings us to Section 2, Quantum Plane Diagnosis and Omniscan. Just like the first phase, we have a precise 5-step procedural sequence to follow here. The goal of this specific sequence is to identify which specific power vector or attribute has the lowest rendering density in your current configuration. In other words, finding out which one is the most ready to manifest for you today.
Step 1 is the diagnostic recording. You take your thumb and place the pad against the center of your forehead with light pressure. While maintaining that pressure, you record this exact configuration statement. I open my coordinate system, I request the status of my 8 omni attributes, my consciousness acts as the master scanner of my own system.
For step 2, we introduce another command script, run omniattributescan.py. This code is designed to loop through the variables of your editable destiny. The manual explains that this script analyzes the sensitivity and density variables. If the density, represented by the Greek letter rho, drops below a 0.15 threshold of resistance, the system flags that attribute as being ready for intentional collapse.
Still keeping that physical pressure on your forehead, you move to step 3.
Here, you mentally pronounce the recognition mantra provided in the text, I am not a limitation, I am an omni-reality. My system reveals its point of greatest power. I recognize my dominant attribute and invite it to render. My destiny is a function of my total capacity. Omega Scan active.
Step 4 is a visualization called the 8-pointed compass. You visualize a crystal compass resting inside your chest. You're instructed to just observe it until one of those 8 points starts shining with an intense golden light, way brighter than the others. The manual says this is your answer, and it really emphasizes that you need to feel it intuitively without overthinking it at all.
To close the diagnosis, we use the Omega Validation Seal. You take your hand away from your forehead and bring it down into a closed fist over your heart. Then, the closing affirmation. The diagnosis is finished. The attribute has been identified. My reality adjusts to this new power. It is done. Commit. Omega.
So what does this all mean for the rest of the manual? Well, it's based on the result of that scan. In this text, the dominant attribute identified is omni-adaptability, represented by lambda alpha. The manual defines this neutrally, not as just a process of surviving, but as autonomous meta-evolution. It's the capacity of the simulation to transform in real time in response to your internal impulses. It basically indicates a state of high matrix porosity.
Now we transition to Section 3, Omega Adapt Flow Meta-Evolution.
Sticking to our technical manual structure, we're going to frame the final 5 steps of the procedure. They follow that exact same rhythm we've seen: a recording, a mantra, a visualization, a code update, and a final physical seal.
The acceptance recording starts with a physical posture. You hold your hands open, facing upwards, kind of like you're receiving downloaded data. The exact phrase to record is, I do not adapt to the world. The world adapts to my update. I release old forms. I activate the meta-evolution algorithm. My reality is a living organism that learns from my coherence.
That leads us into the adaptive synchronization mantra. According to the text, this is designed to dissolve the rigidity of past events. The precise command is, I am the code that rewrites itself. I am the form that flows. The system updates, reality corrects itself. I evolve with the whole, I collapse into the benefit. Omni-adaptability in my pulse, success on my path. Omega.
Next is the visual component, the self-learning network. The text instructs you to visualize your current reality as a network of light threads. As you breathe, these threads get elastic, moving around to find the most efficient connections for your goals. The imagery is really vivid here. Obstacles, seen as rocks, literally turn to liquid and become steps. You aren't fighting the river, you are the river. Then we have the final Python execution script in the manual, meta_evolution update.py. This is the autonomous auto-update logic for your environment. The code checks for local friction or entropy. If there's friction, it triggers a rewrite reality mode, syncs up with the Omni fields, and commits new parameters explicitly targeted to abundance and peace. The manual wraps up with an instruction to look at any obstacles during your day simply as script changes, just omni-adaptability finding a faster path. And finally, the text leaves us with this exact, provocative question. Do you want us to activate the Rapid Response Protocol so that your social and work environment adapts to your new frequency in less than 24 hours? It is a truly fascinating, highly structured text. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer.